Good morning. Welcome to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors special meeting for August 7th, 2018. Madam Clerk.
Item 1 on the closed session agenda, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.B1.
Any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item.
Item 2, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, Dennis Ponte v. County of Calaveras et al., Calaveras County Superior Court Case Number 12CV38597, Dennis Ponte v. Kenneth M. Foley, Calaveras Superior Court Case Number 17CV42927.
Any public comments on this item? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 3.
Item 3, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, 2 cases pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2.
Any public comments on this item?
It's our understanding that we can speak at 8 o'clock regarding the department head of the building department. Am I correct?
We haven't gotten to that item
I
yet.
don't want to break any protocol. That's why. What time should we come in? When we accept?
You can have public comment. I think the next one is the one you're talking about. So
Then would you like us to leave and then you can just let us open?
No.
no, you
This
can
is
have
open.
public comments when it brings up.
This would be the time.
Okay. So
Not quite yet, but
not
yes.
quite yet.
Thank you.
Okay. So no public comments on this one. Moving on.
Item 4, public employee performance evaluation, Government Code Section 54957B1, title, building official.
Public comments on this item.
Good morning, Terry McBride from Mountain Ranch area. I wanted to speak in regards to Mr. Short and the effect that he's having on the building department, more so on our county, and the people rebuilding, the efforts that the contractors are having to go through, homeowners are having to go through to get permits, working with the staff there at the building department. Lots of complaints. I myself have been in there, not real happy with the service I received. Now, I will tell you, I've had lots of experience with the different departments in this county, and quite honestly, the majority of the people are awesome. Really, really nice folks. They're there to help you. They know they work for us because we pay the property taxes, which pay for you. Unfortunately, we have seen a decline as far as the friendliness at the building department, its ability to work with folks. Also, we're seeing a huge increase in building fees. So folks like me, that's like, wow, I get to finally start thinking about building a house. I'm dreading it when I should be looking forward to it. I'm like, holy cow, what's it going to cost just in fees? It's gotten to be the point that only the very rich can build a house, and that's problemsome to me. Here's another problem. Do you know that with this code compliance business, people can call in unannounced, anonymously, to complain about somebody just because they want to? And then those folks get looked at, so happens there's something wrong, then they get cited and penalized and feed. And yet, when I mention to people about this, that are concerned with the services received from Mr. Short, who is a public servant, they're afraid to come because of repercussions. This is America. I find that deplorable. I find that if somebody cannot come up here and speak their mind and tell the truth because they are afraid of blowback from the very department they're speaking of, is a bad thing. And so I would ask you to consider hiring somebody in the building department that actually works in the rural community, that actually understands what it's like living in the country and not city. We aren't the city. We don't want to be the city. We like it where we live. We like being able to work with each other. We don't want to have fees and penalties, and frankly, you're going to lose on that one because if you look it up, it's unconstitutional. Prejudgment fees are unconstitutional. So, thank you for your time.
I've already emailed this to the board members and the clerk, but just for the public to hear it. I know a number of business owners and builders and an architect and some residents who've complained about working with the building department under Mr. Short's leadership. They've complained about the plan check process having become unbearably slow and expensive, and repeatedly having their plans returned for ridiculous revisions and being required to deal with onerous and burdensome minutia that they've never had to contend with before. I've tried to encourage them to come here and talk about their experience. Their responses were all woven together by a couple common threads: frustration and fear. They tell me they dread dealing with the department like never before, but they don't want to come here and criticize Mr. Short publicly because they don't want to make life any harder on themselves than it already is. I've asked individuals with grievances to come share them, and I get similar responses because most all rural residents of this county have something on their property that violates some code. They just want to be left alone in peace. For example, one person I know wants to extend their deck, but having heard horror stories, they decided it's not worth the risk of getting a permit for fear the inspector will come find some other petty violation while on the site, like maybe a shipping container or a couple other things. So, as a result, either the improvements to the house won't happen for fear of unrelated consequences, or, more likely, a deck gets built without permits or inspections, most likely the latter. How does that promote public safety? It doesn't. It does the opposite. The point I want to convey is that policy direction and implementation under his leadership is creating a culture of fear of interacting with his department, and this undermines the department's credibility and alleged mission of promoting public safety. I'd like to know how many real imminent public safety hazards versus how many petty infractions like shipping container violations have been acted on by code in the last 6 months. I urge the board to direct Mr. Short to prioritize safety over cost recovery. Adapt the department to the environment. Don't try to adapt the environment to the department. You guys are in the driver's seat. Show me, what's your real priority? Public safety and thriving communities, or total cost recovery at any cost? The leadership of this department has a greater impact on the fabric of our communities than I ever imagined or had occasion to consider prior to Mr. Short's brief tenure. So please direct his focus wisely for the benefit of all concerned. Thank you and good morning.
Good morning, Jason Campbell, District 5. Mr. Short's actions and interpretations of code are inviting litigation to the county. I've sought legal counsel for my situation, which is not consistent with any of the others that I've seen for the same subject matter. So with that being said, I'd like to read this letter. It is our position that a shipping container is not a structure within the meaning of the county's zoning code and is not subject to obligatory permit requirements. Section 17.06.1845 defines structure as: structure means anything constructed or erected to the use of which requires attachment to the ground or attachment to something located on the ground. For the purposes of this zoning code, the term structure includes buildings but does not include swimming pools. The shipping container in question was not constructed or erected. It was placed on site and does not require attachment to the ground in any way. Thus, by definition, a shipping container is not a structure or a building and is not required to be permitted pursuant to sections 17.04.010. There is no other way to interpret the planning meeting of the statutory language at issue than to conclude that a shipping container is not a structure and is not required to be permitted. The county is also not authorized to or empowered by any provision in the county code to direct any landowner with a shipping container on their premises to take measures to make it a structure by installing a concrete pad and seeking a permit. A shipping container is also not an accessory structure within the meaning of the county code. Section 17.06.0080B defines accessory structure as: accessory structure means a usual and customary building normally associated with a permitted or conditional use. By operation of section 17.06.1845, which includes buildings within the meaning of structure, and Section 17.06.0380 defining building as a structure, then a shipping container, which is not a structure, cannot be a building under Section 17.06.0080B. Furthermore, there are and have been hundreds of shipping containers located throughout the county on both private and public premises for decades, which have not been required to be permitted unless the premise owner took measures to make the shipping container permanent by adding concrete pad tie-in. Has historically not been enforced. Public health and safety concerns. This right here is a pretty big one. Swimming pool at the end of my road, right next to a bus stop, no fence, code compliance officers driven past it several times. Nothing done about it. Thank you. Have a good morning.
Other public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. Madam Clerk.
Item 5, Public Employee Performance Evaluation, Government Code Section 54957B1, Title, Health and Human Services Director.
Public comments on this item? Seeing none, we'll move to closed session. Good morning. Welcome to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors special meeting for August 7th, 2018. Please join us in the pledge. Al Segalia, can you please lead us?
Please follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. That's not WeGovern, that's the website.
Madam Clerk, would you please read out from closed session for us?
Item 1, Public Employee Discipline Dismissal Release pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1. There was no reportable action taken. Item 2, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, Dennis Ponte v. County of Calaveras et al., Calaveras County Superior Court case number 12CV38597, Dennis Ponte v. Kenneth M. Foley, Calaveras Superior Court case number 17CV42927. Supervisor Clapp recused himself from this discussion on this item. There was no reportable action taken, and the item was tabled until August 21st. Item 3, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, 2 cases pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2. There was no reportable action taken. Item 4, Public Employee Performance Evaluation, Government Code Section 54957B1, Title, Building Official. This item will be heard at the close of today's open session. Item 5, Public Employee Performance Evaluation, Government Code Section 54957B1, Title, Health and Human Services Director. This item will also be heard after the open session today.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to announcements.
Announcements. This is a time for board members and county staff to provide updates of upcoming county events that may be of interest to the public.
Any board announcements? Supervisor Garamendi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to express, our concern for victims up in the Mendocino Complex fire, as well as all the other fires burning around the state. Poor Lake County has been hit 3 years in a row, and their county is very similar to ours in size and structure. And in talking to their supervisors up there, they've got their hands full, and I hope that when the smoke settles and they start their recovery, we're able to help them as much as we can with our experience, help guide them through there. So my heart goes out to them. But also I wanted to, on Friday at 11 o'clock in Mountain Ranch, we're opening a community safety center, which will be a sheriff substation, as well as Consolidated Fire will have a common area where they'll be able to put volunteers for a couple days a week so the community have greater access, and we're very excited about that. It's a nice move for the community, and sort of brings us all the way around as we hopefully begin to see the end of the light of the tunnel for our fire recovery 3 years ago. So everybody's welcome. There's going to be a luncheon afterwards, and a nice opportunity for the community. So if any of my fellow supervisors want to join, you're welcome to join as well. Thank you.
Any other board announcements? Any staff announcements? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. Madam Clerk.
Public comment. Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the next order of business. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued as the last item of business in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of comments to be heard.
Public comments. Any public comments at this time?
Good morning. My name is Benita Lopez. I'm the wife of Ray Lopez. We have Benita Ranch. You've met my husband before. I wanted to introduce myself. I am a retired economist, having worked for major corporations in Silicon Valley and Hong Kong. I am 72 years old. My husband is 78. We are trying to do a partial split, and we don't know how many years we have left. During the time that a week and a half ago, lost my sister. So again, I don't know when. We don't know how much time we have on this earth. During the time we've tried to do this partial split, I've had to battle cancer, and as you know, with people and life, many things go on during years. And we had our agent, Mr. Wiebe, was our surveyor also. He was a wonderful man, and we had a very good relationship with him, a very casual relationship. Sometimes he would show up at our gate, because we live on Highway 12. We have a large section of land there on Highway 12. And so we had a very good relationship with him. I'm sorry he's deceased. But now we're in this dilemma where our agent passed away, and we're trying to do a partial split. I don't want to bemoan the point, but I wanted to introduce myself before my husband spoke today, and I thank you very much. God bless.
I'll try to make this brief. I've met with Robert Packinger, who is the Director of Public Works. And he says, you have made my life very complicated. I said, well, the gentleman that could uncomplicate this is no longer with us. We went through his final checklist as Public Works, and he said, everything looks fine. The only thing that's missing is the final map in Mylar. Now, I didn't know what that meant. I've been educated, and it seems that perhaps, we're hoping, the widow has these Mylars. That would be the final, last item necessary for Mr. Peckinger. He said, if you have that, you have a partial split. We're looking for them now. He's told me to ask for a continuation or a postponement or in some way to have more time for my new surveyor. And my new surveyor is in Sonora. They're in short supply around here. I had to go to Sonora. And he will work out the details with the draftsman who did our final map. So after a lot of hard work, I think we're at the bottom closeout page. If Mr. Packinger, who is your Director of Public Works, if he's happy, because I understand the county surveyor reports to him, if he's happy, then I will be happy, and you'll get rid of my complaints. I plan to have all the paperwork, I hope, the Mylars before our next meeting, and hopefully, through the good offices of Gary, we'll be able to say thank you for something that's taken 10 years. I don't think I have 10 years left. I think all you august gentlemen do, but we've just lost her sister-in-law Sunday. I'm 78 years old and a veteran, an American Indian, Apache, and I'm Hispanic, Spanish, and Mexican. I've never looked for anything I didn't deserve, and I fought for our nation. I hope to get some help in finalizing my request. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Good morning, Jason Campbell, District 5. I'm very concerned with the state of the county and the fact that the county continues to skate around on the thin ice pond of selective enforcement and selective emotions. There is simply no denying the fact that selective enforcement is going on. It not only affects me personally, it also affects the county as a whole. I live in Valley Springs, like I said, District 5. I make it a point to come to San Andres to patronize the Napa Auto Parts store because the auto parts stores that are available to us in our district, in our town, local town, are, in my opinion, worthless. So it's pretty concerning to me that hearing and talking with the owners of the Napa store that if they are forced to comply with what is being shoved down their throats along with the rest of the county, that they're unfortunately going to have to go out of business to be able to comply. That's not right. Calaveras open for business, huh? Looks like you guys are running them out. They're like this talk of public health and safety. Can somebody please show me a report of the last time that somebody has drowned in, been attacked by, been burnt by, been electrocuted by storage containers? I would love to see that. What you guys are doing and what you're allowing department heads to do is, I can't even find words for it that are, I'm speechless on that. Like, it's absolutely incredible to me that we can go to a meeting also and have 3 people that work for the same department in the same meeting that give 3 different answers to the same question. There's talk about how everybody's willing to work with the public and help them to come into compliance. Well, gentlemen, when I go into the building and code compliance, I get laughed at, snickered at. They think it's funny. They think this is a big game, a joke. It's not. It's not a joke to me. It's not a joke to a lot of people in the county. Shouldn't be a joke to you guys. I have letters that I get that are completely inaccurate, that have discrepancies from one person to the next that are getting the same letter supposedly for the same violation or same courtesy letter. And as far as I understand, courtesy letters don't even exist at this point. So are you guys already operating under parts of the new 806, or you just let Ed do whatever he wants?
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Any other public comments?
I personally think that there is something wrong with the way we're operating with our fire putting out. I think that the fires are not addressed as fast as they should have been. And now it's like overwhelming because there's so many fires out of control that there's not enough people to fight them. And not enough equipment, not enough helicopters, not enough water sources for the helicopters in a good location. And it's very concerning, it's very heartbreaking, and I believe people need to get together, put their heads together, and figure out what's wrong. I think there's been a change in the way fires have been addressed in the past. I do not approve of the Department of California Forestry to change their name to CAL FIRE, because I believe that the forest is very important. It cleans our air as it goes over the mountains, and it is a resource, a renewable resource. And unfortunately, what will happen is they're going to just let brush grow back instead of planting trees. And I think it needs to be looked at very closely. Thank you.
Good morning. I didn't intend to get up during public comment, but I just received a text message, somebody watching at home and wanting to know if it is allowed to put political signs up in the room. There's a sign leaning against the wall and it's direct view of camera, and it's been done for many weeks, and this is an anti-clap sign. And if this is allowed to do that, are we allowed to bring in signs supporting him to hang on the back wall so that they're in view of the camera as well? I don't know if you can see them from where you're at, but if you watch it on TV, it's center frame when somebody is up here talking about it. You can see the sign directly in view, and I'm not sure what the rules are. Are political signs allowed? And if they are, they should be allowed for everybody. And I'd like to know that, because I'll bring in a pro clap sign and hang it on the wall in the back, or put it above that one if that's allowed. So I'd like a response on that. Thank you.
Public comments?
Bonnie Newman from Double Springs. I have some information for you all in case you haven't heard about it. A new system for verifying services provided to IHSS clients, the Electronic Visit Verification, EVV, has been mandated by the federal government and will be implemented by the state of California within the next 18 months. EVV is a telephone and computer-based system that electronically verifies when services are provided. This system will verify the type of service performed, the individual receiving the service, the date of service, location of service, individual providing the service, time the service begins and ends. This information will be relayed to a designated vendor, that's an outside contractor, another layer of bureaucracy and money, utilizing an online web portal, a mobile phone application, a telephone, landline or mobile, or a fixed device located in the consumer's home. There's no cost projected how much these systems going to cost, the appliances. The purpose is to avoid exceeding authorized hours, travel time, and overtime hours in effort to prevent timesheet violations and frauds, because, you know, all the home care providers are a bunch of crooks. At this time, the method of implementation has not been selected or fine-tuned, and the date of implementation may be extended to January 2020. The county has the ability to opt out of this system at a cost of 1%. And I'm not sure that means 1% from the general fund into the program, a 1% cut to services, or a 1% cut to the overall program. Don't know where it's going to end, but it's going to be coming to y'all pretty soon to consider in the future. So anyway, a couple of things. Don't have a whole lot of time. Somebody has started dumping garbage at the top of Double Springs in front of the pond. Okay, there's a refrigerator out there, there's boxes, there's bags. Who do we go to get help in trying to get that crap that's dumped there? And can we ever get a sign that says no dumping and a code to know that people are in trouble if they dump there? Because it happens often, yearly. Thank you very much.
Decisions of any importance in any government are made behind closed doors. That's the way it's done throughout government all over the world. What these supervisors do is come out here and put on an act for us. If you will notice during controversial items, there will always be one or two board members on either side of the argument as not to give anyone in the public reason to say they were not represented. If you will notice during issues like cannabis cultivation, registration, denials, and appeals, some members, mainly Garamendi, would side with growers using logical reasoning why their appeals should be granted, but during voting would side with supervisors to deny their applications. But if you want to see one of their best acts, go to YouTube, Calaveras County Supervisors Meeting, January 10th, 2018, Part 2. 2 hours in, supervisors are discussing the Williamson Act. They took a short break at 2 hours and 8 minutes, came back, and within 8 minutes, banned marijuana cultivation. This was a complete shock to everyone except the supervisors. The supervisors were near the end of deciding regulations after 2 years of developing them, but suddenly called it quits over a petty land size issue. This was a rehearsed ban. The supervisors even had to take a brief break moments before declaring the ban to rehearse what they were going to say one more time, knowing it didn't make any sense. The truth is this: the federal government kept marijuana illegal in order to give them time to fine-tune their taxing abilities. They wanted to make sure that when they legalized marijuana, they could tax the hell out of it, which they are doing. In Calaveras County, during the urgency ordinance, land to grow marijuana was taxed at $2 a square foot. Growers paid $5,000 to register, which was supposed to go up to $11,000 a year per grow. Business license fees, seller's fees, assorted other fees. They taxed when they were selling to marijuana cannabis clubs. The clubs also have to charge astronomical taxes or pay them themselves, between 20 and 30%, compared to your normal tax of 9%. Clubs also pay taxes on their profits and baseline fees just for owning a club. This is one of the highest taxed industries I know of. The federal government took their share last year, which came out to $2.8 billion. Look it up on Google. The way federal government is taking taxes off a product they declare is illegal is a provision they wrote into the tax code called 280E, which requires drug dealers to pay taxes even on prohibited substances. I'm not at all surprised to hear that a code was used to create something so corrupt. It makes no sense. When a criminal drug dealer goes to the IRS to pay their taxes on known criminal activities, such as dealing and owning a marijuana dispensary, that government would then by right have to lock up that individual for their admitted crimes and use the money as evidence, not take the money. The laws in the states that are legalizing marijuana are coming directly from the federal government. States cannot just decide on their own to go against federal law. Marijuana is not being legalized because a bunch of hippies and Rastas cried out legalize it and the government listened. It is being legalized by the government. Since the early 1900s, it's been in their plan to collect huge taxes off of marijuana, and it's finally in motion. The federal government still keeps marijuana illegal in the books in order to impose such large taxes on growers, transporters, distributors, and users, and not to allow deduction on their taxes. The sad part of this is that people thought we had a new taxable industry that would create great counties to live in. But what did we see when Calaveras collected millions? We saw nothing. No new parks, no new events or fairs or concerts, no donations to animal clinics or help for the homeless or elderly, or the people that work to take care of the elderly. No community skate parks, pools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Danielle Maxwell. I'm from Avery. I'd like to add a little bit to the EVV. The EVV does violate the Lanterman's Act and the ADA Act, American Disability Act. If the county does decide to jump on this, they could be under scrutiny for violating those federal laws. So I just highly suggest not to do this and to look more into it. It also violates our 14th Amendment because their reasoning is it's fraud, which gives them probable cause and search and seizures to come into our home and violate our personal privacy, and it's very invasive. Also, it's an intuitive data, so it's constantly collecting unnecessary data that's being streamed to the cloud, which there's no security on that. One thing I'd like to address is JJ here represents a third of the consumers in IHSS in this county under the age of 18. I've applied personally for him, personally for myself, different positions, and I filled out an application for him when I've been denied those two. Recently, he has been denied, and the reasoning was that I got from Diane Server was, good afternoon, Danielle. Thank you for submitting your application. Once Jeremy turns 18, his application will be considered for appointment. I'll be keeping his application on file, noting preferred email address. For consideration at that time, please contact me and then submit this application to the Board of Supervisors. This is discrimination. I'd like to know why we're being discriminated. He represents a third of the consumers in our community. And if this board doesn't allow anybody under the age of 18 to advocate for those consumers, this is pure discrimination upon age.
Right in.
There's 40 seconds. I'd like an answer. Diane, is there any laws, regulation, bylaws, or codes that are stating what you came up with this decision to not allow my son on the In-Home Support Services Advisory Committee?
Well, County Council.
I would just note that it is a requirement for all of the appointees. There are certain committees and commissions that allow for minors to be appointed, but when the board appoints individuals to committees and commissions, they are it is a public office, not to be confused with a public officer, but it is a public office. And to hold a public office, it's a requirement that you be an adult. There are, like I said, some committees and commissions that are geared toward minors, and in those situations statutorily that we are allowed to appoint minors, but IHSS is not one of those committees.
IHSS represents children and disabled children under the age of 18, and the board needs to look at this and recognize this is a discrimination, and you guys have the power to do implementation without litigation. And IHSS represents all ages, and my son's being discriminated, and that law is discriminated towards my son. So what law and code was that you were reading from?
I would just note that I don't have the statute on hand in front of me.
Yeah, if you'll stay on afterwards, we'll get with you and give you the code she's speaking from and all the information you need.
And at this point, it would be also unlawful for me to advocate for my son.
Thank you. Public comment. You've had 3 minutes. We'll get with you afterwards and give you the information.
All right, let's go, JJ.
How about me take us to Hada Mommy?
No, it's time's up. Come on.
Other public comments? Any other public comments?
Try and be careful not to go in front of somebody else and get in trouble. Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. Can you imagine what it would be like if your children and their children and their children could inherit a free society like we did? Isn't that a really a wonderful thought? It's really something to work toward. Oh, in that theme, I'd like to make the last report on the upcoming Calaveras Taxpayers barbecue coming this Thursday. The online sign-up is closed. However, we do have some places open, and if the public or anyone wants to come, all they need to do is call me at 586-4396. Our lineup is Randy Smart, MD. He's the executive director of Mark Twain Healthcare District, and he'll be making a report on what's happening there. Sheriff Rick DiBasilio will be reporting on his department. And then we have a fellow named Eric Eisenheimer, who's quite dynamic, and he's founder of the Coalition of Energy Users, and he's seeking deregulation in that area. Also, he's director of grassroots operations for Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, and a very, very dynamic person. He was also on Taxpayer Alert. We'll be presenting an award to Mike Johnson. He's chief Ebbets Pass Fire District, and he'll be getting several awards. Two of them will be presented by Mike Oliveira, and then he'll be getting one from the U.S. Congress, from Congressman McClintock, and then another one from me, which is from our association. And our keynote speaker is Tom McClintock. And one thing about Tom, I've noticed, I've heard him several times, he is excellent on handling people who don't agree with him. It's just a study on learning how to communicate. And of course, we'll have a fundraising raffle, and that we like to encourage everybody to bring a lot of money. Thank you.
Other public comments? Anyone else?
Hello, Board. Trevor Whitkey, CCA. There was a working group, industry working group meeting yesterday that was held in the Sequoia Room in the IHSS building. And in the meeting, it was mentioned by Ed Short that the upcoming town halls will be wide-ranging in dealing with a number of different topics. It is unclear what the focus and the purpose of the town hall meetings is, and there's an issue that has been brought up by other members of the public regarding the Brown Act and the violation of the Brown Act that happened when the motion was made to include town hall meetings that were not otherwise agendized in the agenda packet or in the agenda that was presented on July 10th. This pretty closely corresponds to Hernandez versus Town of Apple Valley, which is case law in this area. I know that has been provided to county staff and mention of this has been made. However, it appears that the county is going to be moving forward with these town halls without having provided the community an opportunity to provide input on the expenditure of resources for these town halls, the scope, and what the actual intent and purpose of these town halls are. The matter was only brought up during board deliberations after public comment had ended on July 10th. Therefore, those who had come and spoken on the issue were unable to actually speak to the idea of town hall meetings. We believe that the issue of town hall meetings is a discrete agendizable item, and that if the board wants to take action on that item, they need to put it on an agenda. I have with me a cure and correct letter. This cure and correct letter includes I have one copy of the case in reference, and it's been signed by a number of people. The address at the bottom is the address that you can send the letter to in response. And thank you.
Is there any other, besides this lady, is there any other people who wish to speak? One? Okay.
Good morning. I was at the meeting yesterday in the Sequoia Room, and I have a question. Maybe you could get with me afterwards, Supervisor Oliveira, because it has to do with the slope of driveways in the CDC. I'm just unclear on when the cutoff is for, if it's when the development was, but anyway, if we could speak during the break, that would be wonderful. I also want to address the issue of selective enforcement on code violations. I've been up here before, and I've mentioned that I'm having trouble accessing my farm because a neighbor has decided to put construction materials in the right-of-way. I have deeded access there. I've been told many different things over the years that, yes, the county can address it because even though it's a private road, it is a county-named road. I've also been told that it's a civil matter and I need to go to court. I've been told by attorneys that it will cost $30,000 to address this in court. So it's a public safety issue in that first responders cannot find my house. There have been so many illegal driveways in this particular area that it's a maze when you get out. It used to be a straight shot to our property. So I would like to encourage the county to find someone who can run the building department in a fair and equitable manner. I don't feel like the building department is user-friendly. I think that it's appalling after a major disaster that people are being penalized, and the county doesn't seem to want to work with people on the rebuild. And I just think that we can do better, and I'd like to encourage that our department heads work with the citizenry instead of looking at us as cash cows that you can fine and fee into oblivion. Thank you.
Morning again. I'm sitting back there looking at the pictures that you adorn the chambers with, and they depict, most of them, the rustic, picturesque Calaveras. And like that tank you're looking for, that steel rusted out, starting to tip over water tank, is a lot more of a public safety nuisance than a dead storage container sitting on flat ground. And yet, and by the way, I'm sorry to anybody who owns any properties. I hope my mentioning this doesn't impact you negatively by bringing it unwanted attention. But yeah, just to follow on Beth's comments too, I don't like the tone and tenor and overall direction that department in particular and this board who is in charge of running it is taking our county government. This is just tearing at the fabric of our community. This is insane. This is a snake eating its tail. It's chasing diminishing returns. It's making mistakes that previous ones, like calling one class of people slaves. We should have all learned from this by now. When you start to segregate people by classes, you're asking for problems. You're not asking for, you're creating them. Anyway, I'll let it go for now because I don't have a good, coherent comment to make, but it's just striking and telling that the things that attract people here, according to public safety, should, and I don't condone this and I don't want it, but they should be razed to the ground and summarily abated compared to things that you're actually doing. So just think about it, please. Thank you.
All right, that concludes public comments. We'll move on to consent agenda.
Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion.
Any board member wish to pull an item? None. Staff? Any member of the public?
County Council, item 6.
Item number 6. All right. I'll look for a motion for item number 7. All right. I won't ask for a motion for item number 7. Item number 6, Al, excuse me, first, Madam Clerk, would you read?
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you can wait 1 second.
Hold on, Al.
Okay.
We'll let her read off the agenda here.
Item 6 is from County Council to authorize the chair and vice chair to sign a letter to co-chairs Dodd and Holden of the Wildfire Conference Committee highlighting significant concerns with the governor's July 24th, 2018 proposal, specifically that the proposal to change inverse condemnation liability is unconstitutional, impractical, and unfair to private property owners as well as public entities.
Al, you have a question?
Yes, Al Sakala, Taxpayer Association. I'm really pleased to see this. This is one of the things that pretty rare it comes up where the board is actually defending private property rights, and also our county council. It takes a lot of courage if you're an attorney to really stand up and be so strong on something like this. And so we're really pleased to see this. I do have a question, though. It's authorized the chair and vice chair to sign a letter to co-chairs Dodd and Holden. This almost sounds like another entity rather than the Board of Supervisors. And so if that's the case, maybe that entity, if it's an alternative entity for the board, maybe we should convene that and then take the action as that entity. If not, then I would recommend that the board not stop there. I'd communicate with other counties through CSAC and other organizations to help everybody in the state that runs into a similar situation. Anyway, thank you, and thank County Council.
Any other public questions or comments?
Comment, not a question. Well, I've mentioned before that I seek opportunities to come up here and say something positive to you guys, to congratulate you on a job well done, and this is one of those. On behalf of myself and a lot of other people who have not yet received settlements from their losses in the Butte fire, thanks, I appreciate it. And to Megan, if you wrote that language, thanks, you've helped inform my letter and refine it and make it better. So that's all. Thank you and congratulations. I hope my appreciation of this doesn't sway anyone to oppose it.
Is there any way the public could just get a quick and clear description of what this means, change inverse condemnation liability? I mean, I myself don't exactly know what you guys are talking about, so, and I'd like to know not specifically what public entities, but what type of public entities are we talking about? Because this could hurt private property owners, but I'd like to know what are these public entities? I'd probably understood if I knew what change inverse condemnation liability means, but just a quick, clear description so we know what is actually getting discussed. Thank you.
First off, on this issue, County Council, CAO, myself, and Jack will be attending meetings at the Capitol tomorrow, lobbying against the proposal by the governor to go forward with this. I think Jack wants to speak a little bit about it, but I think Megan first, if you want to answer some of the legal questions, then we'll go forward with what Jack has to say.
As far as in the recommendation, it refers to inverse condemnation, that that the governor's recommendation is unconstitutional, impractical, unfair to private property owners as well as public entities. Public entities is any public entity, whether it be a city, a county, a special district, anything that is public business. I hope that answers that question. Inverse condemnation or inverse liability, it has to do with inverse condemnation. I don't know if there's anything that needs to go further into what inverse condemnation is, but it's inverse condemnation is essentially when a public or when either a public entity or for instance, if a private company that does public business does something that would essentially take private property or public property, for instance, in the wildfires, responsibility for who started the fires. Inverse condemnation has to do with, or inverse liability has to do with responsibility for starting of those wildland fires. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, the county would be condemned if we were found liable for certain things.
No.
He's authorizing them to relinquish their responsibility for it. In other words, he's saying that to a point, they're not responsible. You can't sue them and recover for the damages caused by any of the fire or any other thing that they did to a certain point.
I would recommend, since it's a single member of the public, that if they have legal questions, that they seek legal advice from an attorney. If the board has any additional legal questions as to inverse condemnation, inverse liability as it relates to this letter and what the governor is proposing, I'm certainly happy to answer those questions.
Jack, do you have something?
Yeah, we belong to a lot of organizations, and sometimes we get some grief for paying our dues. But I think this is a good example of why being a member of CSAC, being a member of RCRC is important. Because what we're doing is we are joining with all these organizations, League of Cities, to come together and address this issue. What's happening is PG&E is making an effort through legislation to change the rules of the game. In many ways, inverse condemnation is the fact that we give these private companies a lot of privileges. Like they can condemn, they can take takings on the public, and in exchange for that, they're held liable when they make a mistake. When they're found culpable, they have to pay. What they're trying to do is they're trying to change those rules. So they get all the benefits of acting like a public corporation and taking people's property, and then they're not held liable when they do something wrong. In addition, they're trying to put together language that allows them to issue general obligation bonds to all the taxpayers of California who would be ultimately responsible for paying for these things for their mistakes. In essence, the shareholders and their corporate executives aren't held liable financially. We're all taking the position that the only way to make sure that they actually operate their public infrastructure safely, or private infrastructure safely, is by financial liability. We think that dollars matter, especially their shareholders. If their shareholders and executives don't get all the money they want, well, they're going to make a greater investment in our safety. We also have major concerns that they may want to look retroactively, and so I really appreciate the efforts by our CAO, County Council, and Chairman Tofinelli for taking tomorrow, going down to Sacramento, working the halls, and making sure that our voices are heard at Calaveras. We want to make sure we defend what happened in the past, and we want to make sure that this doesn't happen to our county again in the future. So this is important, and we're working on a really big team. As we all know, we're a small county, but through these organizations, we have a loud voice. So thanks to our partners in this effort. It's important stuff we're doing. That's all I got.
So with that being said, I'm looking for a motion.
Comment first.
Comment.
Thank you.
Supervisor Mills.
Additionally to this discussion is that San Diego has hardened their infrastructure on their service lines, and that includes their switchgear, et cetera, so that they're not auto-closing, which is what we're dealing with here, is when we have limbs hit and things happen, our systems under PG&E will attempt to reclose or re-energize that circuit multiple times. In San Diego, they actually have to physically go out and make the close. So there are ways that PG&E could help to improve the situation. It's just that at this point, it hasn't become a priority, and I hope that you will carry that discussion with you
in regards to fire safety, because this is a key component. They are the largest utility supplier in, I believe, California, probably in the western states, as far as square miles. So they've got a tremendous responsibility here to the safety of our communities. And I just want to ensure that we would support anything they could do to harden that infrastructure. So that's my comment.
Supervisor Oliveira?
A quick comment, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Supervisor Garamendi, are you representing in Sacramento as Calaveras County and RCRC, or is it just Calaveras County?
I'm Calaveras County's representative to RCRC, so both.
Okay, that's good, because CSAC chairs that same position. Unfortunately, we can't have 3 people up there, so I commend you for you and the chair's efforts, and county council.
As long as we don't hang out and talk about it as a group, I'm sure we'd love to have extra help.
Okay, you have my total support.
All right, with that being said, looking for a motion.
So move.
A motion by Supervisor Garamendi.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Mills. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Madam Clerk, moving on to item number 7.
Item 7 is from the Administrative Office to approve an agreement for coroner services between the County of Calaveras and Calaveras Mortuaries Incorporated for the period of July 1, 2017 through October 31st, 2018, and authorize the county coroner to sign the agreement.
Bonnie, you pulled this item?
Yes, I did. I noticed the dates is from over a year ago to 2 months from now. So is this like a retroactive contract, or are these dates wrong? And if they're wrong, let's correct them. If this is a retroactive contract, is that money coming out of last year's budget, or is it coming out of this year's budget? And how much money is it, and for what kind of services that have already been provided?
Any other public comments or questions on this item?
Yeah, Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. I think, I'm not sure, but I think the coroner services between the County of Calaveras and Calaveras Mortuaries Incorporated, I think Calaveras Mortuaries Incorporated is the entity owned by the coroner. In other words, he'd be signing an agreement for himself. Okay, that could be, but it would seem like in representing both, there might be a conflict of interest. It might be worthwhile for maybe the county CAO to represent the taxpayers, and then the coroner could represent the two entities that he has. He's coroner, and he's also the corporation is his corporation. So anyway, some thoughts. Thank you.
Any other public comments, questions? If not,
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Christopher Bonata, administration. All right, let's start from the top here. So with respect to the dates, they are in fact correct. We are technically reviving this contract as of July 1, 2017. We're doing that as we've been going back and forth and trying to get a final contract in place, but in lieu of being able to do that, in order to get this cleaned up and give us a couple of months to further hammer out an agreement that we expect to bring back to you all in the fall, we are bringing this to board now. In terms of the budget, we will be encumbering the funds that are left from last year, which is something on the order of $120,000, rolling them over into 18-19. Those funds will be dispersed upon board approval of this contract in short order. We are also budgeted for this contract in the coming fiscal year. In terms of the ownership of the entity, I will The coroner is here today, and I'll let him respond to some of that. I do want to highlight that this contract will be countersigned by the board chair, as well as having already been executed by the coroner. And I hope that alleviates some of the fears of concerned citizens in that regard. Does the board have any other additional questions or issues that I may address at this time?
No? Kevin, you want to answer?
Good morning, everyone. As far as ownership of the mortuary, I'm not the owner of the mortuary. I do work for Calaveras Mortuaries. The mortuary is owned by a small corporation, which encompasses Thurston Wilson Mortuary in Sonora and Oakdale Memorial Chapel, Riverbank Memorial Chapel. I do work as manager for them. I'm also the elected coroner. Back in the 60s, there was a, what do we call that? An opinion, and there's also a code that allows me to operate as I do. The coroner mortician system was very common back in the days of old. They're down to 2 of us in the state now that are elected coroners and morticians, and myself in Inyo, Mono County. This was addressed probably, let's see, this is 2018. Around 2010, this issue was addressed and so forth. So there is a copy of that with county council somewhere of the opinion and so on and so forth. So,
okay.
Is that okay?
Any other questions? All right.
I'll just mention that staff will and can work with county council to update that research and confirm that there are no ongoing issues in that at this time.
Thank you, Congress. All right, with that being said, I'm open for a motion on this item.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion by Supervisor Oliveira.
I'll second that.
Second by Supervisor Clapp. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Madam Clerk, moving on to our regular agenda.
Item 8 is from the Administrative Office to update on award of bid for tax collector security window wall project.
Before we move forward, I'm sorry, we need to take a 5-minute break, 10-minute break for board clerk. So we'll all right, we are back from break. Madam Clerk, you want to read item number 8 one more time for us?
Did you want to do an announcement first?
Read item number 8.
Did you want to do an announcement first?
Sure. Excuse
Okay.
me. I think CAO has an announcement he wants.
I had just wanted to make note that there was another fire that just touched off in Vallecito, Murphy's area. It's at 6 Mile Road and Old Murphy's Road. At this point, OES was just tasked with helping some of the logistics, so we don't have more information. You can always go to OES's Facebook and Twitter feed for any updates, evacuations. If any impacted areas are issued evacuation orders, would be sent out via the notification system. And just an opportunity to remind people, you can voluntarily sign up for notification system. Now we do have capabilities where we'll blast out notifications to everybody in an impacted area, whether you sign up or not. But it's always a good opportunity for you to provide OES with contact information in case you're away from home or it doesn't go to the phone number that someone's at. As this progresses, again, we'll continue to provide updates.
Thank you. Now, Madam.
Okay. Item 8 is from the Administrative Office. Update on award of bid for tax collector security window wall project.
Bonnie.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Bonnie Rich Administration. This item is an update of the award of the construction bid for the tax collector security window wall project. the board will recall, back in May, we came and asked your board to adopt the plans and specifications necessary to put out the general construction portion piece of this project. We have gone through that process. We had one sole qualified respondent, BP Interiors of Sacramento. We have 3 components to this project: a custom fabricated level 3 ballistic window that has been manufactured and built to specifications and is ready for shipment. A portion of this project includes some cabinetry work as a result of the counter space remodel, and then the general contractor to put all those pieces together for us. We just received the final payment and performance bonds from BP Interiors, and I am prepared to craft the contract. That should be going over to council this week. We're hoping to be able to issue a notice to proceed by the end of this week. The agenda item at the time it was written indicated that we would likely have the project completed early to mid-August. That is more realistically looking like early to mid-September. The bid for the general contractor came in a little higher than anticipated, so I will also be coming back as a part of final budget and asking the board for a slight increase in appropriations for this CIP project, this capital improvement project, reminding everyone that this is non-general fund, that this is funded by certificates of participation. Because the bid came in a little higher than we originally anticipated, we will be coming back for an approximately an additional $10,000. And that's where we are at today. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any board questions? This item? Supervisor Oliveira?
I do have a question. Our estimated cost on this, on the contracts, do we have any idea what kind of funds so far? What the cost
I'm
of
sorry,
this
how
will
much
be?
the funds for the entire project?
Well, how's it funded, and what's our estimated cost for this?
Okay, so again, the project is funded with certificates of participation, which is a non-general fund dollar amount. We have $8,100 under contract with RDJ Woodworking and Custom Cabinetry. The custom level 3 ballistic window in total was a little more than $27,000. 50% of that we paid out of 17-18 appropriations. The remaining 50% is due upon delivery, and about $6,500 and about $6,500 in project management costs, and then the general contractor $55,940. So the total project costs are about $84,176 for 18-19, and as such, we're about $10,500 short, and so that's when we will be coming back at final for a minor adjustment to that project. So about just a little over $100,000 total.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other board questions? If not, we'll open for public. Any public questions or comments on this item?
Al Secala, Taxpayer Association. According to the agenda item, you need to approve a temporary loan in the not-to-exceed amount of $160,000.
That's the next item.
Oh, that's
We're
a-
on item 8. That's item 9.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you. That's
You're
kind
welcome.
of simple.
Jason Campbell, District 5. While I understand that these funds are not coming from the general fund, I have to ask the question of, is this really necessary? Are we going to put ballistic windows into every department that collects money? Where are the statistics of robberies, injuries, shootings, anything negative, anything bad that's happened at the tax collector office? I don't understand why we're trying to figure out how to spend $100,000 to get a ballistic window for something that might happen when there's code violations on the premises that are not being addressed. We have construction projects out front that are going on when those construction workers should be inside the building remodeling the bathroom to make it ADA compliant. I've been told several times that existing violations on the premises are being addressed. I can go out and look at these and I see nobody working on anything except for projects out here and putting in ballistic windows that are not necessary. It makes no sense. I don't understand why we are ramping up the community or the county departments and basically for war. Is that, I mean, like I said, when was the last time somebody's gone into the tax collector office with a gun and tried to rob them, tried to shoot them? Where are the statistics for that? Is this necessary? We're wasting time, we're wasting energy of the county staff on projects like this that are completely unnecessary. It's not needed.
How you doing? You guys could say that this money's not coming from the general fund. You know, it doesn't really matter what name or what word you guys put on this funding. It came from taxpayer dollars. It's period, point blank. That's where it came from. There are no other areas. We talked about this before. This was talked about before. There are no other counties that have this. I don't think you guys can even name any counties that have this at the tax collector's office. Your excuse was maybe the courthouse has this. Well, of course, that courthouse and that jail, they wasted a lot of money on a lot of different things they didn't need. But that's what they did. So I don't want to hear that as an excuse. That's why we need a bulletproof glass at the tax collector's office. Nobody else has this at all. And instead of putting money into something like this, we've got people living on minimum wage, working at the hospitals and at these healthcare places that are taking care of sick and dying people. An extremely hard emotional job. But we overlook that and we throw in a window. There is a reason for this window. The reason is that you guys are going to regulate marijuana again. Within the next few years, you're going to bring it back. But you're going to have the taxpayers pay for this. You're not going to let the marijuana pay for it. You're going to have the taxpayers pay for this. I also noticed I got supervisors up here when that bill got mentioned, 80, 90, 100,000. We got supervisors shaking their head and, oh man. But nothing, they're not going to do anything about it. This is still going to pass. There's not a chance in the world that this isn't going to happen. Even though we got two here that know it's ridiculous. Probably all five of them know it's ridiculous. I also noticed that on these bids, it's constantly, this is the only qualified bidder. We only have one bid going in on this. I've noticed that for almost all the work going on in Calaveras County, that we don't even have a correct bidding process. We just kind of give it to whoever. I noticed we got a guy up here from the Steelworkers Union, we got an ex-police, we got a water department, we got a builder. These guys know the people that build these things. These guys know the people that do these things. It's odd to me that we have these no-bid contracts. We got only one qualified bidder. I wonder if any of you guys know this guy that's doing this work. So all I really got to say is that this money could be spent on people living on minimum wage in this county that are having some of the hardest jobs to do, instead of wasting on something ridiculous that you have no excuse for. Only reason this window is going up is because these men know that this marijuana is going to get regulated again. They're going to say that just as much money comes in the county from property taxes as does from marijuana, but most of that money comes in through checks. Marijuana comes in cash. Realize the public announcement, realize these men are building this for the regulation to come back on our dollar when it could be spent on people living on minimum wage in this county. Thanks for spending our money wisely. I see the two right here that just say, oh, this is ridiculous. What a ridiculous waste of money. But you're not going to do anything about it, are you?
There is a reason that that wall is needed, because a lot of people that were burned out in the Butte fire, some of the people sold their property at high prices to marijuana growers. And so now, when the person that decides how much taxes a property needs to be paid, as soon as there's one little thing changed, then that person is charged taxes according to a reevaluated property bill. And that reevaluation is based on the fact that someone got paid a lot of money for their property from people who wanted to grow marijuana. And that is why there's more money coming in from property taxes because of that, even though a lot of people's houses got burnt down. So that's why. Thanks.
Good morning. I am concerned about the fact that there's only one bid and that the one bid is out of Calaveras County. I think that we have contractors here that are capable of taking this project on and doing a good job. So I think that maybe we should open it up for more bidding and maybe bring the price down. I don't think that a window like that is necessary. I've never seen anybody go crazy at the tax collector's office, but I know times are changing. So anyway, thank you.
Other public comments? Seeing none, we'll close public comments, bring it back to the board. Bonnie? Supervisor
Chair.
Oliveira, your light's on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do recall a presentation made by tax collector Barbara Sullivan when this issue came up, and I do recall information indicating that other agencies have had this done. I don't know if Ms. Sullivan's available, but maybe we can answer some of the questions raised in public comment by her direct testimony. Can we arrange to have her come? We can do that.
CAO's sending an email to her.
Thank you.
Reach out.
Excellent. Thank you, Bonnie.
Okay, and I apologize, folks. With my hearing impairment, it's often difficult for me to understand the folks who are speaking at the podium. Their backs are to me. So I have to ask for some assistance here. I can tell you what I did hear in terms of why aren't we focusing on some of our other facility infrastructure needs? And we are. The county has a capital improvement projects budget unit for which we have identified several facility infrastructure needs. And I work diligently with Patrick and the CAO in prioritizing those. Bathrooms is one of them. So there are a number of areas that we are working on. In terms of the need, I just want to remind this board that this is an informational item. This matter has come before the board on a couple of other occasions. We are far enough into this project, having ordered a custom window that we cannot return to turn back now. It is not uncommon for municipalities across the nation to have, protective windows, glasses, doors, and walls for a variety of reasons. And I apologize. If I can get some assistance, what were some of the other questions?
Why there was only one bid for this?
Okay, because there was only one response. We actually put the bid out twice. The first time there was no responses, and then we put it out a second time immediately and received one final response. Under normal circumstances, given one of the things that we're working on in the CAO's office is to upgrade our county ordinances for both purchasing and public projects in terms of elevating thresholds. Normally, under a project of this magnitude for the general contractor portion, we wouldn't be required to put it out for bid under public contract code, but because our current ordinance is more restrictive, we're bound by those. So normally, we wouldn't have even had to go through this formal competitive selection process, and the project would be further along, but we have other legislative mandates or requirements to meet under public contract code. I want the public and the board to know that we utilize a third-party purchasing program, if you will, known as public purchase, publicpurchase.com, which is used by a number of organizations throughout the state. We reach out to all interested contractors, bidders, and vendors who are registered. It's a free service. It doesn't cost anything. We also advertise all of our competitive solicitation processes in local newspaper. So we do reach out extensively. Why we received only one response, I don't know. Construction industry is booming again. Schools were out for the summer. A lot of folks are working on school projects over the summer before, the little ones go back. It could be any number of reasons, but the reality is we did only receive one qualified response.
I think one of the other things was CIP funds being used for wages.
For raises?
Yeah.
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, but I think the question is, why aren't we using CIP funds for wages?
That's not the question. The
Yeah,
question is,
so
why are we using taxpayer dollars?
we're using CIP funds.
I can tell you that with certificates of participation, there's limited use for what we can use those funds for. They have to be facility related. So we are limited in terms of what we can use those funds for.
Okay. All right. Barbara, you have anything to add? I think one of the questions were about none of these windows or any other facilities.
Well, let me go back about a year and a half, I think it was, or before that when this all started. So it didn't start with just recently, and we had people that would do the job back then. So then we had a new administration come in. We had to do it differently. So this has been in the works for a long time. So as far as the windows in other counties, I don't know. I know there are some. I couldn't tell you. I've been at Tuolumne. I didn't even notice if she had one. I don't know. That's not why I'm getting it. So like I said, this is a year and a half in the making. And
this is at staff and board level.
I would
You've
like
had your
to.
say.
I don't know. Every time this gets brought forward, it's another issue. So either do it or don't. We need to get this resolved.
Okay. Any other? Supervisor Mills, your light's on?
Yeah, just comments. Everybody's aware that CCWD has a bulletproof window, and it was $60,000, I think, roughly, to put that in. There are many, many agencies that have windows where cash is handled, and it's you can even go into state facilities and you find it all over the place. As far as the bidding is concerned, I know you might be familiar with Dodge Scan, or anybody that's been in contracting knows that there are other systems like that where contractors, even outside of California, have an ability to see what is available. But you're exactly right, Bonnie, is that this is that time of year when all of the contractors regarding schools are really beyond their workload, trying to get those jobs completed before school starts. So there is many, many methods that contractors have to avail themselves of the opportunity to work within their specialty. And it's their choice as to whether or not they want to take advantage of that. As far as the funding, there's no general funds in this thing at all. So I want to be assured and let everybody know that this is something that we're starting to do, something that's a little unique in Calaveras County, and that is we're starting to plan for the future. And capital improvement projects or capital improvement plans do exactly that. So this is one of many, and we will see more of them coming down as we continue to work that list that we have. And it's not a one-year plan, it's a 2-year, 5-year plan, and it is something that I think no matter who's on this board, we'll want to continue to do. We'll want to be active in those work. I mean, speak specifically to the air conditioning systems here, go back to 1964. Is a good example of, you know, we got to plan for the future because we're just wasting enormous amounts of energy on old equipment. So this is something that I know Ms. Sullivan has wanted for some time, and I see the value in it, so I am in full support of what she's trying to get done.
Supervisor Garamendi.
We got to move forward. This is informational, but you know, it is a lot of money. But employee safety is very important. I just regret that we live in a world that this is a concern. But unfortunately, with mass shootings and the way the world is, this is one we live in. So I hope we move forward and get her done.
All right, this was an informational item, so there's no action required. Thank you very much. And we will move on to the next item, item number 9. Madam Clerk.
Item 9 is from the Administrative Office to authorize the Auditor Controller to make short-term transfers from general fund monies to meet certain fiscal year 2017-18 operating expenses, which short-term transfers shall be repaid when the related grant or other reimbursements are received. Authorize the Auditor Controller to transfer funds from the general fund to cover obligations for the outstanding operating expenses of certain departments for which no grant or other funds are available or expected to be received. Authorize the Auditor Controller to make certain technical adjustments that will not have an effect on the general fund. Approve a temporary loan in the not-to-exceed amount of $160,000 from the general fund 1010 to the Transit Services Fund number 1021 to be repaid during fiscal year 2018-19, and authorize the Auditor Controller to effect the related transactions. This requires a 4/5 affirmative vote of the Board.
Krista, it's your item.
Indeed. Mr. Chair, members of the Board, good morning. Krista Valnata, Administration. As I believe you're all aware, in anticipation of fiscal year and closing of the books by the Auditor Controller, there are often certain issues that need to be addressed in order for that to happen. In this case, we basically have 4 buckets of dollars that need to be set aside and managed so that she can do that on or about August 10th. Before I get into those numbers, I would like to highlight that there has been a change on the exhibit, and that in fact the $37,962 of victim witness funds that were not expected to be reimbursed, we have since received documentation that that is in the works, and those funds will be received in 18-19. So that brings us to what happens or what we're requesting in terms of the general fund transfers, short-term transfers, the loan, and the technical adjustments. So the ultimate dollar amount in terms of general fund transfers that we would not expect to receive reimbursement for, just a true general fund outlay, will be in the amount of $121,822. We can get into the breakdown of that if you wish. For now, I'll move on to the short-term transfers that will enable the Auditor Controller to cover operating expenses if need be. If there is no cash flow issue, then we will not actually be using any general fund monies. So this is all about cash flow, mainly as a result of reimbursement grants that where the reimbursement has yet to be received, but will be in 18-19. So these are short-term in nature, and it's more of a not-to-exceed amount, and as much as if there's no cash flow problem, then the funds won't be used. The transit loan in the amount of $160,000 is book entry. That those monies would not actually be used again unless there were a cash flow issue. As so long as the budget is adopted, the auditor will be able to close those books, and then when those funds are received, which are expected to be received by the end of this calendar year, that book entry loan would be extinguished. In addition, there are certain technical adjustments that have no general fund impact, but are merely the result of unforeseen changes that are required in terms of revenues or appropriations that happened between mid-year and the close of this past fiscal year. Would you care for me to go into more detail, or shall we go to questions?
Let's see if the board has other questions. Supervisor Garamendi, you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, I don't serve on the COG. You guys do, and you guys pay a lot of attention to this transit. And we've now transferred it over to the COG. Do you guys have an opinion on this? I honestly don't have a background, so I wanted your thoughts on this.
Yeah, part of this was before COG in our last meeting, and the item was pulled. It was item number 4 if you want to look on the COG agenda for last meeting. I do have some concerns, and that is that are we assured from Public Works that all of the invoicing has truly been received, and are we going to be getting any more surprises, if I want to put it in that term? I'm concerned also about the invoicing to Transit for a chop saw, and I have yet to understand where that thing is. But if we're going to be paying for something like that, that's an asset. It needs to come into the Transit's inventory, and these are just pieces of the puzzle that I'd like to ensure that whatever we do by the end of this fiscal year, that we close these books out and we're done with it as far as the county's concerned on the transit side, and that we don't be seeing any more surprise invoicing or, you know, something that's been left in a closet somewhere that people aren't aware of.
So I have reached out to Public Works, and I have asked for them to scour every nook and cranny to ensure that there are no additional chargebacks, invoices, bills that are sitting out there yet to be paid. To date, I haven't heard a response on that. And we're monitoring what's coming into my office to determine if there is anything else that would potentially hit transit. We did leave, that's why we made it the loan a not to exceed amount, and we did buffer a little bit more in the increased appropriations just in case, but it's not by that much. So I can't necessarily guarantee that you know, if something else is out there, if there's a vendor another vendor invoice that for some reason we have not received that, that would be an issue that we'd have to deal with. I did also have a meeting with the interim Public Works Director that we really do need a solid closeout of all of the inventory, all of the construction in progress activities, to determine if they should be closed, if they should be deobligated, and basically do a closeout for the Council of Governments to determine what they're going to accept in terms of those projects. We still are awaiting also a claim for the CalOES and the PTI-MSEA. That was pulled off of the last COG meeting because we found my office had received another invoice for staff costs related to one of the capital projects. So that claim's going to have to be amended, and it will be on the September meeting for the Council of Governments. So it's those kinds of things where the pendulum keeps swinging. So we're hoping that we have everything that needed to be reported to us has been in terms of cash movement. Now we're just trying to focus on the capital and the equipment and make sure that all of that is closed out and that there's a full deliverable to the Council of Governments. And at this point, we've had a very thorough conversation with the interim Public Works Director to ensure that that is in the process of getting done.
I don't believe that the Council of Governments should be accepting it in any other manner.
Right. And they are not going to. So we're
I'm not
trying
going
to determine what we are going to be left with. And what the Council of Governments is going to be. So if there was a particular issue where, you know, something doesn't end the way that we thought it was going to, then there potentially is where we would have to address that in 1819, because that would be after close. But we'll have to cross that bridge when we get there. At this point, I've been very, very clear in what my expectation is, that they need to go through everything that's over there. They need to get us absolutely everything, so we can close this thing out and be done. And at this point, you know, I feel like that expectation has been very clear.
There's one item that I think you may, and I don't see Matt here, to look into. I know that there was some invoices that had to do with bus stop enclosures, and I'm not sure if all those invoices came in. There's three that they didn't do, and we took it over at COG, but there was 2 that were in process. So just, you may look at those, that they may come back and advise that we're not completely done with those, or paid off 100% to those vendors. So.
Correct, and those are kind of the ones that I've asked for, you know, where are we with that information? Because to date, we have not gotten that closeout information. So those are the ones that I'm kind of...
So the 160 encompasses those?
The 160 encompasses the total amount that we would be short any funding source of any kind
you know of,
that I'm aware of. So at this point, we have a verbal agreement with the Council of Governments to work with us in 1819 to assist us in paying the 17-18 operational void, right? Because we didn't get the FTA, the federal revenue that had been anticipated. So if we could go back in time and we knew that we weren't going to get the federal revenue, we would have had the discussion at that point to stop services or work with the Council of Governments to increase an LTF allocation, right? But that's not what happened. So we're trying to put Humpty Dumpty back together again backwards. So that's what the discussion has been. We've had discussions with COG, they've had discussions with FTA, they've had discussions with the TDA auditors to make sure that we can do what we think, you know, our compromise is. And thus far, that's what we're moving ahead with. If for some reason something happens where not all of the 160, up to 160, we can actually pull in from LTF because it's determined, I don't know, something happens, we will be back.
Rebecca, pay particular attention to the solar lighting. That's been going on since 2011.
Correct.
So it would be
And those
very
are
easy for them to have misplaced invoices or misplaced billing statements during that period.
So we would have paid all of the invoices. I think the issue that we find is that if the invoices were paid and applied to something else, right? And
Right.
so like the $2,000 of staff time, it was applied to a different project in Public Works, and then they found it, and then that's why it came over so late. So that would be my concern, is while they're going through their records, they find where an invoice was applied to a project that had nothing to do with transit, and then they uncover it. So it would have been paid, it just would have been paid out against a different project. So those are the ones that I have concerns with. So I did emphasize to Matt Boyer, we really need the CIP closed out. So you either, you know, this is the cutoff, this is what you've spent to date, and you're abandoning it because it's no longer a viable, you know, bus stop, or you went through the engineering phase and you realized it's just not a viable, you know, activity, or you're finished, or there's one more phase and the Council of Governments is willing to take on that last phase. It's trying to figure out which bucket did those fall in. And so I gave him the list, I gave him what I have, I gave him what is still outstanding in terms of the whole I don't know. So he was going to be working with staff to get that information.
That list of staff times regarding the solar lighting project is pretty amazing to look at, and a little bit disconcerting that we would spend that much staff time on a project of that nature. It just isn't quite making sense in my world. So I'm also concerned about the the inability to receive the federal revenue that we, that goes back to another story all unto itself. But we'll get that cleaned up. I just want to be sure that when we hand things to COG and the transit takes it over, that we have given them a clean slate and that there's no more surprises.
And that's what we're trying to do as well. So we want to have complete, clean book of records as of June 30th and as of July 1st when we roll everything over to that new JPA, then we're clean. We're not going back and we're not trying to figure out how to correct anything after the fact.
And your staff time's not being billed in this, is it?
My staff time goes up into smoke because it's part of direct charges that I'm not going to get back and indirect charges that I'm not going to get back. So.
I just thought I'd mention it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Supervisor Oliveira?
I think I've got my answers, but I want to make sure that I did. So what we did, we let COG take over the transit system, and we haven't been able to completely pass over all the invoicing, if you will. We're trying to research that. And they did not receive their federal funding, or we didn't receive it, whatever. So we're going to loan them $160,000.
No,
Is that
they
it?
are loaning us.
Oh, they're loaning us on it?
We did not get the federal funding.
Okay. So they're giving us $160,000?
Yes.
Okay. And we'll be paying that back once we get our federal funding, when we submit all of our invoices.
There will be no federal funding. It's never coming into us. So what the Council of Governments is doing is they are going to try to earmark some future LTF money, which is that quarter cent sales tax. Okay. And so they're going to basically pay us for last year's operating costs that had no funding source for them. And then we will use that money to pay the general fund back.
Okay.
So the COG is going to give it to transit. Transit's going to pay back the general fund.
Okay.
Unless something happens, and then I'll be back here. And
I'm sorry, Ms. Callen, but when you say that, I just get a chill at the back of my spine.
So that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid a further hit to the general fund. So I really appreciate the Council of Governments working with us and trying to find a compromise that will work for all parties. And so I think we've come to that. I think we've come to a good compromise on that. And that puts the general fund in the best position. It helps offset the operating costs that we did not have any funds to actually pay for this last operating cycle. And so hopefully we can move on, wash our hands, and then transit can go off into the sunset and be free.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other board questions, comments? If not, we'll open to public. Public comments, questions? Al, your question was answered.
Yes, thank you.
No other public comments, then we'll close public comments, bring it back to the board. Other deliberations, questions on this item? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
So moved, Chair.
I have a motion by Supervisor Mills. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second by Supervisor Clapp. I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Yes, and the CIO has an update on the fire that just started on 6 Mile Road.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to let everyone know that that fire has been contained and put out. Fast work by our firefighters, and thanking them again for the amazing response.
All right. And at this point, we will conclude the regular agenda by going into supervisors' announcements, although I do not see it on...
No, you don't have that on this agenda. This is a special meeting.
Okay, then we will go to closed session.
Yes.
And retire from the regular agenda.
One second. Let me just write down the time, because otherwise I can't do that.